He spent his entire life making music for the people, and in the end, the people came to say goodbye. The homegoing service for Clarence Carter was held at C.W. Morris, J.W. Henry Funeral Home, Inc., located at 12,700 Hamilton Avenue in Highland Park, Michigan. The viewing took place on Friday, May 8, 2026 from 2:00 p.m. to 8:00 p.m. Interment followed through Southern Michigan services. Highland Park, Michigan. Not Montgomery, Alabama, where he was born. Not Muscle Shoals, where he made his greatest recordings. But Michigan, the state that became his home in the later chapters of his life. The state where he built his own recording studio in the basement of his house and taught himself to program keyboards by feel. The state where the community that adopted him came to stand in line and say what needed to be said. Clarence Carter, the blind Southern soul star who scored 2 top 10 hits with Slip Away and Patches, winning the Grammy Award for Best R&B Song in 1971, died on May 14, 2026, following a diagnosis of stage 4 prostate cancer, pneumonia, and sepsis. He was 90 years old. 90 years, 3 million records sold, a Grammy Award, 2 million selling singles, and a life built entirely on the conviction that what he could not see would never determine what he could do. Let's start with who was in that room, because the guest list for the homegoing of Clarence Carter was not assembled by a publicist. It was assembled by 60 years of genuine human connection, built one recording session, one tour stop, one night on the road at a time. The Fame Studios family was there. The people from Muscle Shoals, the musicians and engineers and producers who stood beside him when he was still cutting his teeth and who watched him become something none of them could have predicted. The president of Fame Studios confirmed his death and called him family, not an artist, family. And the people who worked those sessions, who played guitar and bass and keyboards behind the voice that a fellow guitarist once called the most amazingly perceptive man he had ever encountered, came to Michigan to honor what they had built together. The Muscle Shoals sound community was more than a musical movement. It was a family, a group of people who found each other in a small Alabama city and made recordings that the entire world still listens to 50 years later. And when one of them goes, the others come, because that is what family does. The Michigan music community was there too, because Highland Park, the city that became his home, had watched him build his basement studio, had welcomed him into their neighborhood, had seen him on ordinary days being an ordinary man who happened to have a Grammy Award on his shelf. Those people came, not because they were famous, because they were neighbors. And Clarence Carter treated his neighbors the way he treated everyone, with the same quiet dignity he brought to every room he walked into, every session he played on, every stage he stood on. And the Alabama connection, because even 60 years later, even transplanted to Michigan, the thread that ran from Montgomery to Muscle Shoals to Highland Park never broke. Musicians from the state where he was born, where he attended the school for the blind, where he graduated from Alabama State University with a degree in music, where he first played guitar for Otis Redding and John Lee Hooker. They came north to say goodbye to the man who started it all in the red clay of Alabama. But wait, let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a room where the person being honored was someone who never needed the room to acknowledge them, who had been doing the work quietly, consistently, without demanding recognition, for so long that the recognition, when it finally came in full, felt simultaneously deserved and overdue? That is the specific feeling inside a Clarence Carter homegoing, because this was not a man who spent his career chasing the spotlight. He was a man who was in the room where legendary things happened, who backed up Otis Redding before anyone knew his name, who recorded at Fame Studios before the Muscle Shoals sound became mythology, who sold 1 million copies of Patches in 2 months and then got back to work making the next record. He did not perform his own importance. He just showed up and made something real. Now the place of burial, because where Clarence Carter rests matters as much as where he lived. Interment was handled through Southern Michigan Services. He rests in Michigan, the state he chose, the state where he built his studio, programmed his keyboards, and kept making music until his body would not let him anymore. Not Alabama, where his story began. Michigan, where it ended, on his own terms, in the place he made his own. And that is exactly right, because Clarence Carter spent his entire life making deliberate choices. The decision to attend Alabama State and get a degree in music, rather than just pursue it without credentials. The decision to drive to Muscle Shoals and cut records at Fame Studios when nobody had guaranteed him anything there. The decision to build his own label, CG Entertainment, in 1996 rather than wait for someone else to give him a platform. The decision to put his studio in his basement and learn by feel what most people learn by sight. Every choice was deliberate. Every chapter was his. And the chapter that ended in Michigan, in the state he chose, surrounded by the community that took him in, is the most fitting ending to a life built entirely on personal determination. The tributes from the music world have been coming steadily since the news broke. And what the people who knew his work are saying is the same thing in different words, from different angles, but pointing toward the same truth. He was underrated. He was always in the room at the right moment, backing up the right artists, recording at the right studio, making the music that deserved more credit than it received. He gave one of the most celebrated guitarists in the history of rock music the most enduring compliment of his career, the most amazingly perceptive man I ever met. And that guitarist went on to become a legend while Clarence Carter remained, in most households, a footnote. That is the specific injustice of his legacy. Not that the music wasn't heard. It was heard by millions. But that the name attached to it was never quite as famous as the name attached to the songs he influenced, the artists he backed, the sessions he elevated. The president of Fame Studios confirmed his passing and wrote that he was far more than an artist. He was family. Family, that is the word that tells you everything. Not a legend they were lucky to have. Not a historical figure whose recordings are now archived. A family member. The kind of person whose absence changes the shape of the room. He was born blind in Montgomery in 1936. He received a guitar from his grandmother at 9. He attended the Alabama School for the Blind. He graduated with a music degree. He backed up Otis Redding. He recorded at Fame Studios. He sold 3 million records. He won a Grammy. He built his own label. He built his own studio. He programmed keyboards by feel. He kept making music until stage 4 prostate cancer arrived and pneumonia followed, and sepsis followed that. And then, on May 14, 2026, the most amazingly perceptive man anyone who worked with him ever met closed his eyes for the last time. In Michigan, in the city he chose. Viewing at C.W. Morris J.W. Henry Funeral Home, 12,700 Hamilton Avenue, Highland Park, Michigan. Friday, May 8, 2026. Interment through Southern Michigan Services. The people came. The family from Muscle Shoals, the neighbors from Highland Park, the musicians from Alabama, the people who loved patches and slip away and scratch my back and tell daddy, and the dozens of other recordings that filled 60 years of honest work. They came because he gave them something real, and real things deserve real goodbyes. Rest in peace, Clarence Carter. January 14, 1936, May 14, 2026. He could not see the room, but he heard every soul in it. Thank you for watching.